So the NFL released all 32 schedules for all teams across the NFL yesterday, and of course now we have the Niners 2026 slate. There are some good elements of it, some bad elements of it. Some people think that the Niners got screwed with this slate. Did they? Let's unpack that and get to it. This is the 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr., and today's show is presented by PrizePicks. Yesterday, I did an instant reaction video talking about the Niners 2026 campaign, game by game, week by week. If you want that breakdown, that video is up on the channel. And if you forgot about this schedule, obviously there's a lot to unpack with it. Let's run through it one more time here. So the Niners will play week 1 on the road technically against the Los Angeles Rams. They're the road team, but they will be playing that game in Melbourne, Australia. First ever game in the land down under. Week 2, the Niners come back home for their home opener at Levi's Stadium to host the Miami Dolphins. The Niners stay at home in week 3 to play the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona, the only team in the NFL that is not favored to win a single game in 2026. Niners have a difficult game again after that week 1 affair against the Rams because they should be able to handle the Dolphins and Cardinals. Week 4 at home against the Denver Broncos. So 3 straight home games after having to travel to Australia. I think the Niners got some favors from the NFL. Hey, we're going to make you travel to Australia and accumulate nearly 16,000 round-trip miles, but you come back home, you stay home for 3 weeks. Niners hit the road to play the Seahawks in week 5, big game there. Then they come back to Levi's and they host the Washington Commanders on Monday Night Football. So the second primetime game for the San Francisco 6 weeks in. Niners go on the road to play the Falcons in Atlanta week 7. It's pretty much a cross-country trip. Then they have a bye week in week 8. After the bye, I think that the Niners getting off to a good start this year is going to be very important. This is a pretty difficult schedule after the bye week. Now, they will be big favorites against the Las Vegas Raiders. They'll be favored, I believe, on the road against the Dallas Cowboys. They should be able to beat the Minnesota Vikings. So coming out of the bye, 3 straight winnable games, including that game against Minnesota in Mexico City. But then home against Seahawks, on the road against the Giants, home against the Rams, on the road against the Chargers on Thursday night. So a short week game after playing the Rams. Then the Niners, with a little bit of a mini bye, hit the road to play the Chiefs. They host the Eagles on Sunday Night Football. The Eagles coming off a mini bye because they play the previous Thursday. And then the Niners do get a good break here after that difficult run of games. Week 18 on the road against the Arizona Cardinals. The Niners right now are favored in 11 of 17 games on their 2026 schedule. How does that rank among all teams in the NFL? Let's take a look at it here. So the Los Angeles Rams, for instance, lead the NFL in the games that they're favored in, with 16 of 17 games that they are favorites in. Week 15, the Cincinnati Bengals, we're talking so much about weeks, are favored in 15 games this year. Bills, Lions, Packers are favored in 14. That following tier, you have the Ravens, Texans, Seahawks at 13. At 12, Bears and Eagles. And then the Niners are favored in 11 games alongside the Dallas Cowboys, the Denver Broncos, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Los Angeles Chargers. Not a bad spot to be. Now, coming up, we're going to go through some in-depth analysis with this Niners schedule on top of what we've talked about in the first 4 minutes of the video. Did the Niners get screwed by the National Football League? We'll get to that here in just a moment. But first, today's 49ers Report is presented by PrizePicks, my favorite daily fantasy sports app, the only one that I use, and that's why it's the #1 daily fantasy sports app in North America. NBA playoffs are rolling. NHL playoffs continue. Major League Baseball is in full swing. I know Niner fans are very tired of the San Francisco Giants and their first season under Tony Vitello. They've certainly been up and down, but look, a lot of sports to choose from. And then before we know it, football season, NFL season is going to be in play. College football as well. So make sure you get in on the action with PrizePicks. You can make some player picks. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stats. How about some team picks? Yeah, you can do that as well, where you pick winners, spreads, and totals. Right now, when you play your first $5 lineup, you get $50 instantly in lineups. Let's talk some golf. PGA Championship taking place right now at Aronimink Country Club in the Philadelphia area. Cameron Young, less than 69.5 strokes. JJ Spawn, less than 70.5 strokes. And then Ricky Fowler, less than 70.5 strokes as well. Pick more, pick less, pick PrizePicks. Use our code HMA. You get $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. It's always good to be right with PrizePicks. All right. Let's talk more about this 49ers 2026 schedule. I like how it sets up after the Niners have to travel to Australia. And, of course, Kyle Shanahan is not happy about having to cross the Pacific Ocean, logging all those miles, nearly 8,000 one way, and then having to deal with the time change to play a football game against the Rams in Melbourne. But I think the NFL did the Niners some favors because San Francisco, after returning from Australia, has 3 straight home games at Levi's Stadium, and the only trip in 5 weeks after that Rams game in Melbourne is going to Seattle. That's a short trip from Northern California to the Pacific Northwest. The Rams, on the other hand, do get more of a cushion in week 2. They play on Monday Night Football, whereas the Niners play in that afternoon window against Miami, but they're at Denver in week 3, at Eagles in week 4. Is there a scenario in which the Rams could start the year 0-3? You could potentially see that. And how the Rams have to finish the schedule is also very difficult, like San Francisco. As far as some early East Coast games, the Niners only play 2 10 a.m. Pacific games this year. That is a quick turnaround with the body clock, but you only have to play 2. You should be able to beat the Giants. And the Niners are so much better than the Atlanta Falcons. Holiday games. This is more of a fan thing where you can deal with holidays without the stress of watching the Niners. The Niners don't play on Christmas. They don't play on Thanksgiving. No game on Black Friday. They don't play on New Year's Eve either. Short rest. The Niners only have 2 games with short rest as of right now. We don't know any times for any of these Week 18 games because that will depend on playoff matchups. And, of course, the NFL will determine that late in the year. Extra rest. The Niners have 4 of 17 games this season in which they have extra rest. That's a good boost. And I actually don't hate what the Niners' rest differential is. Remember in 2024, coming off a short off season when they lost in heartbreaking fashion to the Kansas City Chiefs in Super Bowl 58? How could you forget? Well, the Niners' rest disadvantage that year was like -24, -25. And the difference between them last and the Ravens first in rest differential was a month and change in a season that runs September, October, November, December into January. That's pretty crazy when you think about it. And I know that the Niners aren't at the top of this list, but they're not at the bottom of this list either. They're neutral. Their rest differential is 0. I think that's actually a pretty good spot to be. That being said, those are some of the positive elements of this Niners schedule, the negative elements of it. San Francisco's schedule after the bye week is an absolute gauntlet. And so starting hot to get yourself some wiggle room and to build up a cushion, I think is going to be really important for the Niners. They have a week 8 bye. They come out of the bye. They host the Las Vegas Raiders. Myself and Mitchell Renz, he was talking to me yesterday. We might try to go out there for a watch party or a pregame party in the Bay Area. If we do that, we'll give you some details. If you'd be interested in coming to meet me, hang out with the faithful and other Raider fans, type me down in the comment section. But winnable game right there. Niner fans will take over AT&T Stadium on the road against the Cowboys, and I think the Niners are a better team than Dallas. So 2 winnable games here. I think the Niners will be favored against Minnesota in Mexico City, but long travel, it's going to be pretty difficult. After the Vikings-Mexico City game, though, Niners are at home against Seattle, cross-country travel against a feisty Giants team, home against the Rams, short week on the road against the Chargers on Thursday night, mini bye, but on the road at Arrowhead, probably going to be cold then against the Chiefs. They play the Eagles, and the Eagles are coming off a mini bye on Sunday Night Football, but the Niners are at home in that game, which is huge. But then they get a little bit of a break week 18 against Arizona. So I would say some good and bad with this Niners schedule. I actually kind of like how it sets up for San Francisco, but I could see why some fans would say, Chase, in some ways, yeah, Niners kind of screwed by the NFL. Another thing, too, that I want to add, the depth of teams across the NFL is as good as ever. And with the rest differential metrics that we track now, that we didn't used to track, it's difficult for a lot of teams. Why? Because there are games taking place every day of the week this year on the NFL schedule, except for Tuesday. Business is booming. And I actually think that's a good thing because we get to see a lot of these great games in solo slots. Whereas in the past, there would be 10 games at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. You wouldn't see some of these really good games. So do you like how the Niners schedule sets up? Let me know down in the comment section, and we'll catch you soon.